A Plaguelands Media production.
Hey everyone, this is Hugh from Plaguelands Media bringing you another book review. This time I am reviewing a book of short stories, Closing Time and Other Stories by Jack Ketchum. Now, Jack Ketchum is quite a prolific horror author, but I feel that he doesn't get the same kind of dues that, say, Stephen King and Dean Koontz and whatnot get. I've read a few of his novels. I've read Off Season, which I believe was his first novel. The Lost, which was very, very good. Red, and The Girl Next Door. The Lost, Red, and The Girl Next Door have all been made into films. The Girl Next Door is really disturbing, based on a true story about a woman who kind of brings in two of her relatives, these two girls, these sisters, to take care of. And because her husband had left her, she ultimately kind of blamed the eldest of these sisters for that because she represented women, and then the neighborhood boys and her own sons would come and sexually molest and torture this girl. So it's a fucking disturbing story. So I was really excited to get my hands on some of his short story work. I do love myself a good short story collection. And I can tell you I was not disappointed with Closing Time and Other Stories. Now, let me just... cheers, everyone. Let me just say that not all these stories are horror. They do all, however, have a common theme running through them, and that is the theme of loss. All of the characters in these stories lose something in some way, shape, or form. So I'm going to get into them. I'm going to try and keep this as spoiler-free as possible, because I really believe that, especially when it comes to short stories, you should experience them for yourselves. So here's the next episode of... Now, this is a pretty prolific short story collection. You do get 19 short stories in this, which I really appreciated. So the first short story, Returns, is incredibly heartbreaking if you're a pet lover. And it's not the only short story in this collection that kind of gives you the feels in that respect. It's about a gentleman who he's killed by he gets hit by a taxi and he's dead, and he comes back to his house as a ghost, and he sees his wife, who is not coping very well with the death, and his cat, and he believes he's there to console his wife. But, well, this one's going to be a spoiler. Ultimately, you find out he's there to console his cat, because his wife is having his cat put to sleep. It's... I don't know. It just got me right in the feels, that one. Damned If You Do, the second story, is about a guy talking to a psychiatrist and kind of revealing all of his faults and problems, and then you find out the psychiatrist himself has issues of his own. It was a very well-written story. Station 2 takes place in a restaurant and deals with the after effects of pushing a busboy too far, so to speak. Elusive is a very strange story, in as much as the main character is trying to see a film, but things keep happening that stops him from seeing this movie, and yet everyone he knows says that there's a character in the movie that resembles him, and it was very bizarre. Papa is about memory loss More importantly, memory loss due to the overconsumption of the drink absinthe. The Fountain is an interesting kind of take on death, in as much as a bystander is kind of watching as a child is bullied and then ultimately passes away. Do You Love Your Wife is a breakup story, just pure and simple. At Home with the VCR, the next one in the collection, is a story that kind of resonated with me just because of the style it was written in. It's a conversation between two characters, so there's no kind of narrative in between. And they're watching a horror film that has aspects of pornography, and the female character is berating the male character for enjoying it, but then she starts to enjoy it herself as well. Now, the reason it resonates with me is because I wrote a story in a similar kind of style when I was at university, where it was a conversation between two characters. In this case, it was a psychiatrist and a teenager that had killed his younger brother. So it was a really good read. I enjoyed it. Those Rockports Won't Get You Into Heaven. This is kind of like from the point of view of a bartender, and he is witnessing a father and son after a hit has been put out on the father's wife. Really good little story. Olivia, A Monologue. This one was just kind of the point of view of a victim of a crime. I enjoyed it a lot. And it was kind of written for a stage production, so to speak, that Jack Ketchum was kind of a part of. Brave Girl. This one was interesting. This is kind of different perspectives. It's basically a 911 call from a little girl whose mother has fallen over and hit her head, and the people on the line tell this little girl kind of what to do as the paramedics are getting there. And it has a really disturbing twist at the end of it as well. But it was a great, a very well written, I should say, a very well written story from different perspectives. Honor System was an odd one, in as much as it kind of harkened back to the days where people did have the honor system. This woman stops off at a motel, and the motel has the honor system, so you basically, there's no one to check you in or anything. You just check yourself in, and then you pay at the end, and you're expected to kind of pay it forward, so to speak. Lighten Up was Jack Ketchum's take on the new law that came into effect many years ago now, where you couldn't smoke in bars, and kind of how people dealt with that issue. Hotline. This was an ex-cop who was working for a suicide hotline and taking his frustrations out on the people that called in. It was actually darkly funny to me. Monster. This one I probably shouldn't have read before I went to teach a class, because it's about a guy who has to put his family dog to sleep. Last year we had to put our dog to sleep, so this one kind of really resonated with me. How difficult that decision is, but how necessary. You dog owners out there, you know what I'm talking about. Consensual. Oh boy. This is about a guy that hooks up with a girl, and the main way that she gets off is having her bones broken. Enough said with that one. Seascape. was kind of a flashback story about an elderly couple that want to drown together. Snarl, Hiss, Spit, and Stalk. Well, Snarl, Hiss, Spit, Stalk is taken from the point of view of like a dead cat. It's very creepy. Closing Time, the short story that the book is kind of named after, is the author's take and how he dealt with the tragedy of 9/11. There's two stories here. There's a man and a woman that kind of break up and go their separate ways, and there is a guy that robs bars at closing time, and this story kind of interweaves those two subplots together to quite a heartbreaking ending. It is set after the 9/11 tragedy, and the characters are kind of dealing with that whole thing being in New York and whatnot. So, Closing Time and Other Stories by Jack Ketchum, highly recommend. This is a fantastic collection. They are not all horror, even though Jack Ketchum is most known for his horror stories. They're not all horror stories, but they are all stories about loss in some way, shape, or form, and they will resonate with you after you finish reading them. So there you have it. Closing Time and Other Stories by Jack Ketchum. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, hit that notification bell so you don't miss a video, but most importantly, stay safe. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and of course, as always, read a fucking book, people.